This is the gorgeous girl genius, Miu Iruma, the ultimate perfect waifu. What's not to like about her? She's the whole package. She's smart.
But Miu, you don't have an alibi for when the crime occurred either, do you?
You think I'm suspicious? I don't even know where the gym is.
She's mature.
Did you forget the gym's not open at nighttime, dick cheese?
She's got big tits.
Feast your eyes on these babies.
She's assertive.
You'll figure it out, shitheads. Now hurry up and think. If you want to make my golden brain tingle, start circle jerking your limp dick brains.
She's got a way with words.
It's a drone. Wow, you got drain damage or something? You saying I'm wrong? You got a lot of ass to be contradicting me.
She has a tender side.
I'm always wet. I'm just feeling extra sensitive, like these big boobs of mine.
She's got big tits.
Well, when you got the body of a goddess, it's only natural to want to flaunt it.
She's concerned about hygiene.
I make Kibo use that function every day to analyze my turds. Shit is a great indicator of intestinal health and gut bacteria quality. Plus, taking a satisfying shit does wonders for a woman's natural beauty, so...
She's honest.
I show my panties to the boys all the time. And I mean all the time.
She's got big tits. And, did I mention she's got big tits? Miu is amazing. There's so much about her that is baffling. On the one hand, she's a genius. She makes two inventions that are capable of disabling electromagnetic fields, giving the main characters a huge advantage against the mastermind. She even finds the time to invent a remote control capable of hijacking the exosoul robots on top of that, completely taking the mastermind's own weapons away from them.
Oh, you didn't know? Miu not only invented the electro bomb and the electro hammer, she also made a remote control that can hijack any electronic device. Kokichi just slapped a receiver on each of the exosouls and took them for a spin.
And at the same time, she's a moron. Astonishingly, it never occurs to her brilliant brain to try making these machines earlier. It would have been incredibly useful in helping everyone escape. It's not until Kokichi asks her to that she even considers the idea. And even then, she seems mildly inconvenienced and unsure about it.
I could invent a machine that disables Monokuma's security systems. Or I can invent an alarm clock for my pussy.
Yeah, the idea of making 3 game-changing devices that could end the killing game and save everyone is a bit too much, so she'll happily hatch a complicated murder plan that will put everyone's lives at risk, including her own? She also constructs a motion-sensitive camera trap on Shuichi's behalf, which is integral to his plan in uncovering the mastermind and a key piece of evidence throughout both Trials 1 and 6, and yet the entire time she had no idea what it would be used for and apparently never even thought to ask.
I just designed the cameras. I didn't know they'd get set up in the library.
If someone asked me to make cameras, I'd totally ask what they were for.
How come you never asked what the cameras were for, huh?
This and other narrative blind spots are the main reasons why I feel V3 really jumped the shark. And while she does have those stopped clock moments where she inexplicably somehow manages to correctly identify the culprit in each class trial, which I joked about in this video here, a lot of the time she doesn't really contribute much of value to any of the investigations, other than her tasteless, vulgar sex jokes. Essentially, she's a mixture of both fan service and comic relief, since her character's purpose really only serves to relieve tension by breaking the otherwise somber atmosphere every now and then with her vulgarity. I will confess, I did like her at first, but by chapter 4, I was beginning to find her a little tiresome. Now, Miu isn't one of the most popular characters in the fandom. She failed to make it past the first round in almost every Danganronpa Awards tournament of the past 3 years. Probably the main reason for this is that there's very little to her character in the story other than that. She survives 4 whole chapters, but from start to finish, fundamentally does not change as a person. She doesn't experience any character growth, and for the most part is unfazed and detached from the killings. And while she can be funny, a lot of what she says is completely tone-deaf to the atmosphere around her. Her character basically amounts to little more than a stereotype, and once she got killed, I was relieved that the game was finally beginning to take itself seriously once again. But what I want to discuss in this video is, I want to address a specific criticism I've seen people complain about more than once. Miu isn't as popular as, say, Kokichi, Nagito, or Shuichi, but nonetheless, she is liked and adored by the fans. However, she's also quite a divisive and controversial character. And the main reason some people take a strong dislike to her is not because of her lewdness, not because of her rampant narcissism, her selfishness, her vulgarity, or her vacuity, but because of something else. Her lack of respect for other people's boundaries. She constantly insults and berates her female classmates because of their chest sizes, with little provocation.
We heard you the first time, Titless. No one cares.
In particular, she singles out Kaede for this.
Good job, Kaede. Guess I shouldn't have judged you by your lackluster rack.
Which is remarkable because Kaede too is also quite a big girl. Her chest is really only a few centimeters smaller than her own. And when Kaede points this out to her, Miu decides to find out if they're real by groping and fondling her chest, leading Kaede to smack her in the face. But as if that was not enough, there's the love hotel scene, in case you all forgot, where, in the midst of Miu's fantasy of Shuichi being her childhood friend, and needing to have a child by him to ensure he won't abandon her, she forces herself on him.
You know what? Fuck it! Come here, Shuichi! I'm gonna squeeze every last drop out of you!
Wait a minute!
Some people took to Reddit to point out this is unacceptable, and if she were a boy, there's no way she'd get away with this. And it's true, there does seem to be a double standard here. I don't think there's any doubt that if Shuichi was the one who tried that against her, and Miu was the one who felt nervous and unwilling, I think people would have a very different reaction, let's just say. In fact, it's quite likely that Spike Chunsoft would probably get a very stern talking to by the ratings board, and would quite possibly end up at the center of a social media firestorm. So how does Miu get away with this? Why is she allowed to sexually harass her classmates and act in ways that are totally unacceptable? Why is it that in spite of her actions, people idolize and adore her? To further complicate this matter, let's compare her with another character who is in a lot of ways similar to her. Teruteru Hanamura, the ultimate chef, because it really does highlight something important. Like Miu, Teruteru is also a massive horn dog and a pervert. The first time we're introduced to him, he is seen propositioning a female classmate, Sonia, asking if she would suck the poison out of his loins. He makes several unwanted advances to the other students and acts in a way that is simply beyond the pale.
Hey, how did it feel to do your business in the dark? Did you get excited? Seriously, stop it.
Even the male students are not safe. Nobody is. Geez, the guy would probably screw a hole in the wall if he could. In many ways, his character serves a similar purpose to her own, to distract people from the otherwise dark atmosphere of the killing game. Except, there's a noticeable difference in how they are received by the fans. It's hard to gauge popular opinion on certain issues when you're part of a fandom, because you can never be sure that you're asking the right people. But if you compare Teruteru with Miu, it's pretty clear that Miu is liked overall by the fans. Whereas for Teruteru, most people in the fandom either dislike him or view him with indifference. But how can this be? They have so much in common. They're both sexual deviants, so much so that both of them crossed the line on one occasion.
Oh, you've awakened a lust within me, the likes of which no mere mortal has ever known, Sion-ji!
How about I let you lick my shoes for a minute and then call it a day?
Oh, I'm gonna lick a whole lot more than that!
And they both attempt to commit murder so they can escape. Yet for some reason, Teruteru doesn't get a pass. Whereas Miu made it to round 3 in the 2021 Danganronpa Awards, Teruteru never won a single round. Even Monami got more votes than him. And in all the tier lists I've ever seen, Miu can always be seen placed high above him. I don't think there's any doubt that Miu is liked more than Teruteru. She gets far more engagement from the fandom than he does. Bizarrely, according to this poll here, people seem to think that he is the bigger pervert of the two, in spite of the fact that if you compare and examine the content of both of their in-game dialogues side by side, Miu is objectively filthier than he is. There's simply no comparison. Teruteru, to his own credit, is usually more subtle and only expresses his horniness through innuendos, mostly to do with cooking.
I am weird, aren't I? At times like this, I'd rather be fantasizing about tonight's main dish.
Ew! You totally mean that in a perverted way.
But Miu has virtually zero subtlety. She even puts Teruteru to shame. And while both of them do attempt to commit sexual assault on another student, Miu is the only one who actually does it. Teruteru only attempts to. It's possible that if Miu was single-handedly erased from the entirety of V3, the game's entire age rating would go down. So we have a situation here where there are two characters who are almost identical in personality. Both of them are disgusting perverts, and both of them are guilty of sexual assault. But they are treated differently. How can this be? Why does Miu get a pass? First, let's cover the obvious difference. Miu is a girl. Yes, she has the body of an adult woman, but for all intents and purposes, we'll call her a girl. Teruteru is a boy. Why is this important? Well, to answer this, let me digress for a moment to talk about male and female evolutionary psychology. Because of the fact that men and women are different, our society has different expectations for the sexes.
Expectations.
Men are physically taller, stronger, and faster than women on average. They have a higher muscle-to-fat ratio and greater bone density. Why do you think women are referred to as the weaker sex? This is because we're a sexually dimorphic species. Men and women have evolved differently, to the point where most of the time you can easily tell the difference between a man and a woman just by looking. All of these things are significant from an evolutionary perspective. But these are not the only differences. Another key difference between men and women is in their psychology and their needs. And what do men need? Sex. Men need sex. Chasing after sex is a man's purpose of being. It's not just men who want sex, by the way, but virtually all living male organisms. There are many male animals who will literally fight each other, sometimes to the death, in order to secure mating rights with a female. Yes, there are some exceptions to the rule. Sometimes there are female animals who experience the horny. But most of the time, it's a uniquely male character trait. The desire for sex is what drives competition and aggression in male organisms.
I haven't had sex for 3 days. I need to have sex right now. If I don't have sex soon, I will go mental.
Men who don't get any sex can become depressed and suffer from mental health issues. They can become bitter, angry, and resentful. It's even driven some young men to commit terrible crimes out of frustration and anger. And why is this important? Well, here's the thing. As I mentioned, men are stronger, quicker, and taller than women on average. So theoretically, if a man wanted to forcibly have his way with another woman, there'd be very little she could do to stop him. And indeed, if you look at the crime statistics, you'll see that rape is almost exclusively committed by adult men, and mostly it's either women or young girls who are the victims. So why doesn't every man just do it? Why doesn't the average man literally just take any woman he wants and have his way with her? What's stopping him? Society. Men's sexual desires are held in check by laws, by human instincts. Paradoxically, it's precisely because women are more vulnerable that crimes against women are taken very seriously. We are innately disgusted by men who physically dominate or abuse women because it's not a fair matchup. Women have no chance of fighting back. Running away is also out of the question, since men can easily chase them down. This is why, historically, rape has been considered an unspeakable crime, arguably worse than killing. It's one of the worst examples of injustice, because it all boils down to the strong preying on the weak. Men have been evolutionary hardwired to court women for sex, not to take it by brute force. This is also why rape has historically been a crime punishable by death in almost every society that has ever existed in history. In fact, the crime is so horrific, even the mere accusation of it has led to some of the most horrific examples of torture and punishment against suspected rapists imaginable. Many men who have been falsely accused of rape have had their entire lives destroyed. So going back to what we were discussing earlier, Teruteru and Miu are both sex-crazed deviants who try to force themselves on another person. Let me ask you a loaded question. Let's say we've got two scenarios here, one of them being a man forcing himself on an unwilling female partner. The second is a woman forcing herself on an unwilling male partner. Which of the two do you think is regarded as more socially unacceptable? You don't need to think too hard. It's this one. When a man forces himself on a woman, he either uses physical violence to overpower her, or simply the threat of violence in order to get what he wants. In the opposite scenario, a female perpetrator usually uses manipulation or lies or drugs in order to do it, not physical force. Anyway, in a case like this, where a man is physically coerced into sex by a woman who wants to be pregnant by his own seed, he isn't physically harmed, not in the same way that the woman is, because sex is a penetrative act. Even in this example, Shuichi is still the one doing the penetrating. The legal definition of rape is skewed against the one who is doing the penetrating, in this case being Shuichi. So in other words, according to British and American law, Miu's actions in this scene don't even legally meet the definition of it. Interestingly, rare though it is, female-to-male sexual assault is actually a real-life phenomenon that has been documented in academic literature and has become the subject of discussion in recent times. A study was released on the subject in 2017 by Siobhan Weir of Lancaster University. It's difficult to compare both scenarios or definitively say which of the two is worse, but the results in her study showed that most male victims of rape at the hands of a female rapist had strongly negative experiences as a result. In a subsequent report published by her the following month of that same year, a sample of 115 male sexual abuse victims were asked to give a number ranging from 1 to 10 in terms of how negatively the experience impacted their emotional well-being. The average result for all of them combined was 6, with the largest share of victims, a fifth of the overall respondents, giving it a 10, the highest rating. Because men are expected to be physically tough and strong, and because they have an innate desire to get sex, and because women are presumed most of the time to be delicate, caring, and the object of man's desire, the very notion of a man being raped by a woman is seen as absurd. It's hard for most people to even take it seriously. We've seen this happen in the news. In 2014, American actor and performance artist Shia LaBeouf claimed that on one occasion, during an exhibition at a Los Angeles gallery called I Am Sorry, in which he sat silent and motionless in a private room wearing a paper bag on his head, one woman approached him, ripped his clothes off, and raped him. And throughout the entire process, mainly due to him staying in character, he remained quiet and didn't say a word. But few people believed him. Piers Morgan stated that his story was absolute baloney. and that he was denigrating the experience of actual sexual abuse survivors. Also, whether it did happen or not, no one was ever charged for it. The story died down shortly after. You see, being a man is also kind of a double-edged sword. Being the stronger sex means that more is expected of you. Men are socially and culturally conditioned to be seen as aggressors, not victims. Numerous public experiments have shown that while most people are quick to react and interject upon seeing what they believe is a man physically berating another woman,
I'm not playing. I'm not playing.
Yo! What are you doing? Oh,
when the opposite is shown, that is, when they see a woman physically accosting a man in public, most people will just walk by and ignore them.
Yeah.
Do I take sugar in my coffee? No? Yes? No? No?
I guess
no?
you don't.
No?
Okay,
I don't. I've never taken sugar in my coffee ever before. Ever before. Ever before. I have never, ever taken sugar in my coffee.
Some will even laugh.
You don't do that shit to me.
I wasn't cheating on you.
Hell. You texted that girl again.
I wasn't cheating on you.
I f***ing caught you red-handed, dude. Kidding me right now?
What?
There are also different social pressures that exist for both men and women respectively. Men are also expected to be more stoic and conceal their real thoughts, showing no sign of emotional vulnerability. A man who wears his heart on his sleeve is seen as weak and unmanly. In the case of Teruteru, a man who openly flaunts his sexual urges without any sense of shame or restraint is seen as weak-minded and unreliable. Because a hallmark characteristic of a strong male character is that he is temperate and able to hold back his urges. For women, the rules are different. Women are not subjected to such mores, and do not need to have the stiff upper lip. In fact, in the case of some female characters, being weak and emotionally frail can actually turn out to be an asset. More people will feel sympathetic towards them. There's an innate bias that exists in all of us that makes it very difficult to see men as victims, and even more so for women to be victimizers. This is just one of many reasons why Miu can have her way with Shuichi without his consent, and most people can either excuse her actions or sympathize with them altogether. But that is only one reason. There's a second reason why Miu gets a pass.
The secret to happiness is being good looking. Now, throughout your life, people will lie to you and say things like kindness or being good to others or family or some shit. The only way to truly be happy in this world is to be good looking.
Let's talk about aesthetics. The study of the nature of physical attractiveness, which is something that affects our lives and interpersonal relationships in ways that most of us never even think about. We like to think that beauty is subjective and in the eye of the beholder. But sadly, this is mostly a kind lie. Beauty can be subjective to a limited degree, but the reality is, there is a broad, cross-cultural scientific consensus on what makes some people more attractive than others. These include characteristics ranging from facial symmetry, physical health, skin complexion, height, prevalence of hair, and jaw length. Evolutionary biologists agree that beauty, just like physical form, is a sign of genetic health. And the evidence clearly points to one thing. Our society unconsciously favors attractive people. It's a phenomenon known as the halo effect. Beautiful people really have it easy in life. They're treated better. They're more likely to get jobs than people who are average looking. They're more likely to be promoted. They're more likely to be voted into public office, even if they're not as qualified. Even babies are attracted to pretty faces. It's true. Babies stare at attractive faces. Beautiful people stand out. In general, we have a tendency to put them on a pedestal.
But I am telling you right now, that motherfucker back there is not real. And you can sit on this plane and you can fucking die with them or not.
society favors them and showers them with so much praise and affection, some people use their good looks as a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's amazing what we let some of them get away with. No matter how badly they debase themselves, no matter how messed up or disgusting they turn out to be, there's always a niche of sex-crazed, pathetic young men who will oblige them and forgive their actions. They can sell their own bathwater, they could sell their own farts in a jar, or they could create an alcoholic beverage from their own vaginal yeast, or they can make an entire career on YouTube from reacting to stolen content with some of the most vacuous, brain-dead drivel I've ever listened to.
Whoa!
They can dox people who criticize them. They can literally fuck their own dog. Now you know. Miu is very beautiful. She has the archetypical feminine hourglass physique, long, elegant pastel pink hair, smooth, pale skin, long eyelashes, and beautiful, expressive eyes. She's also got a decent height and the perfect ratio of body fat. Other than the clothes she wears and the manner in which she presents herself, it's very difficult to find fault in her physical appearance. So we've discussed how beautiful people are viewed. What about the people who are not so beautiful? Well, now it's time to turn our attention to the flip side of the halo effect. Teruteru is unattractive. First of all, he's ridiculously short, coming in at a measly 4'3". Basically the size of a child. He's also fat. Very fat. So fat that he weighs more than she does. So fat that according to this BMI calculator, he's technically obese. It doesn't take an expert to know that being a midget and being massively overweight are not exactly ideal qualities in a romantic partner. Men on average are taller and leaner than women, so seeing a man who is not only shorter but also fatter and heavier doesn't exactly endear you to the fandom. But not only does he have a fat belly, he also has a fat face. A clear sign of him being massively overweight and unhealthy. Dimples usually seem to suggest a sort of childlike innocence, but this doesn't really match Teruteru's personality, given his lewdness around his other classmates. Instead, it has the effect of making him immature and baby-faced. In fact, when you consider that his last words are him crying out to his mother, all this adds together to make him look like a weak, pathetic mummy's boy. He also has Ness from Earthbound's dot eyes and a button nose to match. He seems to resemble more a snowman than an actual human being. They could have given him normal eyes if they wanted. In fact, just compare his design to his beta. Now, he's a lot easier on the eyes here, you gotta admit. As if that wasn't bad enough, I don't like either of his dubbed voices. Both of them make him sound creepy and effeminate.
I definitely heard Teruteru's voice. It's handsome, unlike his face.
Maybe this is just my opinion, but I feel like if they really wanted to make his voice sound handsome, they could have given him a deeper and more masculine sounding voice, like Gundam Tanaka. Men with deeper sounding voices are seen as more masculine and authoritative.
Ну как Гандам на английском?
His body was underneath the table at the very back of the dining hall. He was particularly nigh that possible.
Не могу!
Evil fourth eye before the might of the...
Господи, он чисто папочка, девочки.
Unattractive people have a really hard time of it. Everyone is cruel to them, and most of the time nobody even realizes it. Besides the obvious fact that the opposite sex wants nothing to do with them, there are so many other ways in which the world reaffirms their original sin of being born ugly. Statistically, their own mothers don't treat them with as much affection and care as they do with their other children. They're more likely to be bullied at school. In the workplace, their opinions are more likely to be overlooked. That is presuming that they stay on long enough to attend a boardroom meeting in the first place, because they're also more likely to get fired. They suffer from poorer mental health. They are punished more severely when found guilty of a crime compared to less unattractive people. And just in case there was any doubt, just how many people actually shed a single tear when Teruteru got executed? If they designed this character to be hated and disliked, then frankly they couldn't have done a better job. But as if that wasn't enough, there's yet another dimension to his unpopularity. Because of the fact that Teruteru is male and also a nasty pervert, people judge him negatively because of intersexual power dynamics. For obvious reasons, we're more afraid of and disgusted by male perverts than by females. But at the same time, he's not remotely physically strong or tall. He has very few masculine features. He's a mummy's boy. He has a baby face. And worst of all, in the scene in Danganronpa 3, where he attempts to molest Hyoko, having laced his food with aphrodisiacs, Chiaki knocks him out cold with a single punch.
Sling Dragon Fist!
I regret nothing.
If you want to touch my classmates, you gotta get through me first.
So on top of all that, he's not even strong enough to match the physical threat he imposes on other people by being a predator either. It's a very sorry situation. It's like he has all the negative aspects of being a pervert and none of the positives that come with being a boy.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
The sad truth is that the halo effect and its reverse counterpart are innate human biases. No matter how bad we try to stamp them out, or even try to acknowledge them, they've always existed, and will always factor into how we see the world and how we see people, whether we're aware or not. And when you consider the difference here in terms of physical attractiveness, it becomes pretty clear why Teruteru, despite being equally as lecherous and horny as Miu, is not that well liked by the fans, while Miu, in spite of the fact that she's arguably more vulgar than he is not so hated by the fans. It explains why people idolize her, whereas Teruteru is the butt of jokes. There's an interesting scene I remember in the first chapter of Danganronpa 2, where Kazuichi expresses his total disbelief at just how unashamed Teruteru is of announcing his dirty thoughts out loud. And in response, Teruteru says this: "But this is wrong. Miu Iruma is the kind of pervert that everyone likes, not Teruteru. And that is why Miu Iruma gets a pass." Thank you very much for watching this video essay. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, please leave a comment, and consider donating to my Ko-fi page. And do consider leaving a donation on my Ko-fi page, because these discussion videos take a lot of effort and motivation. So a little positive, encouraging feedback from the audience would go a long way.